I guess we kind of think about why any technology, right? For example, for the longest time we used just hand tools and maybe even an ox or some sort of animals integrated into the farming practices in order to plant crops, till the soil, do those kind of things. And over time we evolved these new technologies, these new tools that essentially all they did was extend the reach of humanity. And really, since we first grabbed the first stick, that's what these tools have been, is a way to extend the reach of humanity. And so over time we started integrating mechanical muscle, things like tractors instead of an ox. And the problem is, these tools are made to just grow monoculture crops, which, as we know, are incredibly unsustainable. When you pack all of the same exact plant into one area, it needs a massive amount of chemicals sprayed on it, because if one gets sick, that sickness spreads throughout all the rest. Whereas if you have something that is more of a permaculture forest approach, that sickness is going to be less likely to spread through the plants because there's such a biodiversity. But the problem with a permaculture food forest is that it can't be done with traditional farming technologies.
So technology is a double-edged sword. We can use it for good or bad. It's a tool that helps humanity, or we can use it to the worst of our advantage. For instance, drones can be used to plant forests, plant millions of trees. But drones can also be used by the armies to kill people without even seeing them. So technology by itself is often neutral. In our vision of Mycelium, we are wanting to use technology to benefit humankind and benefit sustainability and regenerate landscapes. We envision that robotic food systems which are networked can hyper-localize food production, which will enable us to have a resilient food system and reduce emissions, make people more connected to their food, and help landscapes become wild again.
The new farming technologies need to be developed to be able to make farming a lot more sustainable. So for example, in our vision, we use robots because it frees up people to be able to do other things. And just because we use robots, it doesn't mean you're squeezing nasty chemicals made by robots into something that maybe resembles some snack foods we're used to, just chemical-filled nastiness. We're talking about instead using robots to maintain an organic ecosystem that actually produces healthy food naturally. The question I ask is, would anybody enjoy standing there and monitoring the health of a plant for 24/7? I would argue that our time is better spent elsewhere. Instead, you can have these systems that monitor literally every aspect, literally every organic input to the system. You can monitor the health of the soil, the amount of bacteria and fungal networks that exist in that soil. It can measure the chemical input to that soil, the acidity, the humidity, everything about it. It can monitor perfectly 24/7 in order to optimize nutritional output of that plant. And so on one hand, you have a massive amount of time spent by people trying to monitor a plant, which really is just not feasible. And on the other hand, you have the ability to have tools that extend our reach as humanity, as I said, to grow the most nutritious food possible. So it's a great question to be understandably concerned about how robots growing our food could create a disconnection between us and food. First of all, those robotic systems would be actually located in your house, so you would see them all the time, and they would essentially be a lot more in your face than today's food system. Today's food system, if you ask a majority of children where their food comes from, I bet their answer would be the grocery store. It wouldn't say from a farm or from animals. It comes from the grocery store. So I would really argue that we are currently very much disconnected from our food system. But if these systems were actually hyper-local, they were in our house, food was produced at home, just like it used to be. However, by robots, you'd be able to watch food be produced in front of our eyes. And the children, if you ask them in that sort of a system, I guarantee they would say, well, it comes from this machine here, this system here. I can watch my tomatoes grow. And especially if you can watch that food be transported literally, let's say 20 feet from your garden over to your kitchen and start being produced into this new way right in front of your eyes, I would argue that we would be much more connected with food.
So there are already technologies being used for regenerative purposes. One example that I read of recently is called Flash Forest. It's a company in Canada. And at full potential, they will be able to plant 100,000 pods, which are potential trees, per day with just one UAV operator. Can you imagine how much effort would it take if we decide to do that with our own hands? The amount of people to plant 100,000 trees a day? Technology can do that for us, so why not use our advancements as a species for benefiting people and the planet? I don't see why technology can't be used this way. As I've said, technology is a double-edged sword. It's up to us and human nature to decide what to do with it.
So there's a common concern with technology and automation replacing people's jobs. And actually it is a very justified concern. With the exponential growth of technology, it is a very likely scenario that a lot of these tools, these technological tools that we create, are going to replace people's ability to earn an income. And so really the question becomes, what do people do when everything's automated? What will matter collectively as a species to us? What will we care about? And most of all, what will we actually do at that point? Well, until we get to those answers, our suggestion within this vision is to actually help tap into not universal basic income, but some concept called universal basic assets, where instead of distributing free money every month, you distribute actual assets that generate an income for their owners. And in the case of our vision, these would be food production systems that actually earn an income for the people who have them. And so rather than worrying about how people are going to earn an income for working and doing these other things, we're proposing a solution that actually envisions providing something that generates an income. And not only income, but also food, something essential to the life of everybody. So I think more important than thinking about how will people compete with automation to earn an income, we have to think about clever ways to distribute assets that generate an income for their owners.